John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to the Rossifari podcast. So this week, I am going to be giving you a recap of what I got to experience at the AZA Midyear meeting in Atlanta, Georgia. And if you haven't been here for my recaps before, we do this a little differently. So this is just kind of going to be me talking about what I experienced at the meeting. And also, Zoe's going to be joining me to share about some of the things that she heard about and learned about and all of that. And, you know, normally I do these for the big annual conference, the AZA annual conference or the AAZV annual conference and stuff. And right off the bat, the first thing that I learned is that there's actually a really big difference between the mid-year meeting and the annual conference of any of these organizations. And so this is something that I think, so a lot of people that I talked to at the meeting were surprised by this. It wasn't just me. But if you're a first-time attendee, you don't realize. So let me explain the difference as best I can. When you go to the conference, it is big. Over 3,000 people coming together to a hotel convention center to learn and to do things and to network, but also to honestly celebrate all things AZA. There are a ton of AZA decorations. Last year, you may remember, I mentioned at the opening meeting in Tampa for the conference, there were all kinds of things. There were mascots, there were dancers, there were people on stilts, there was a drum line that was playing through the conference, and it was this huge celebration. And that's cool. I like that kind of thing. It's fun. It's a whole lot of a lot at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Monday. But it's really exciting stuff. They get you hyped up. There's a keynote speaker who speaks every day, and they bring in, celebrities and entertainers and stuff like that. It is big. And then there are multiple tracks, all of which have something that you can go to at every single time frame, like every single block, if you will, on the schedule for the meeting. So, there could be 10, 12 different things happening all at once. Plus the exhibitor hall is open the entire time and you can go talk to those people, and there are breakout sessions and all kinds of craziness. This is a working meeting. So a few of the days there were general sessions. But even those were very focused. Like one of them was on sustainable populations. It wasn't hyped up. It wasn't, whoa, moving to the future. Woo! It was okay. Here are sustainable population myths and facts, and what you can learn on blah blah blah. Very different vibe. It is still a lot of people. There were over 1,000 people. I think they said over 1,500 people that attended the work. See, I keep starting to call it a conference, and then it's actually a meeting, but I almost said work sessions there. But I think they said around 1,500 people, which is a lot, but is nothing compared to over 3,000. Obviously, it's less than half. And everyone is coming at it from a work perspective. Normally for my AZA recaps, I'm running around and grabbing people and shoving microphones under their faces, and this just didn't seem like it was the right time or place to do that kind of thing, which is why it's only Zoe and I on the recap episode. I had people that I'm sure would have been willing to. I interviewed people for episodes of Rossifari that I'm sure would have also given some insight on this, but it just didn't feel right. Most of the things are safe or SSP or tag related. And I'm going to get into a lot more of that and what that means if you don't know those terms yet. And there were some things, but a lot of the actual sessions that weren't about that were still very focused on the working side of things. I attended a PR committee session that was open to everyone, and it talked a lot about GEO, which is how to optimize your facility for AI results. And whatever your opinion on AI is, and y'all know what mine is, the fact of the matter is it's being used by search engines. It's being used by people. So how do you have AI recognize your facility as authentic, as a good source of information, as an expert, so that if some random person goes and shoves into ChatGPT or Google, is the Georgia Aquarium a good facility, then the Georgia Aquarium will be one of the references that the AI uses to choose its answers, rather than Bob's website of opinions.com. Spoiler alert, that's not a real website. Anyway, and so everything is very work focused. A lot of the talks were not talks, but instead they would start with a talk, but then open the floor to conversation, which was a lot of fun. It was very collaborative, people learning from each other. And I really enjoyed that whole vibe of it. It was just really cool. So I was fortunate to get to be there for the entire meeting. Zoe joined me a little bit later. And so I'm going to start off talking about just some of the things that I experienced early on. So the very first day that I was there, there was a SAFE program that I wanted to check out. And that was Safe Massasauga rattlesnake, which is a rattlesnake that is found in the U.S. And I thought it would be so fascinating going to a SAFE program and learning about, in particular, the stuff that I do, the engagement, the awareness, the education, and how you built that around a species that has a bad reputation and that is less charismatic by a lot than a red panda or a tree kangaroo. And it was really cool going and seeing the work that they're doing, seeing the actual restoration work for habitats that they're doing and all of that. But what really drew me in was the engagement and awareness stuff. This SAFE program has a mascot suit of a rattlesnake so that kids can meet the rattlesnake and not be scared, which I just thought was the coolest thing ever. And immediately I was like, oh boy, am I going to end up in a red panda or tree kangaroo costume because of SAFE? And the answer is probably yes. But it was really cool to see the different layers and how they're doing things and how they're approaching their SAFE differently than we do with red panda. So I really enjoyed that. It was a really great meeting. I got to chat with some really cool people. I met a woman named Alex, who is a vet student at the Ohio State University School of Veterinary Medicine and is doing an externship at the Georgia Aquarium. And we bonded over laughing about the mascot in the best way, of course, like not making fun of it, but actually just thinking it was really cool. And yeah, just it's that kind of thing. You meet people, you chat, you learn about things, and it was really fun. After that, there was nothing else that day going on that was super SAFE related. There was a lot of population stuff. And so I totally bailed and went to the Georgia Aquarium because we get to use our badges to go in for free. And if you're in Atlanta and not spending as much time as possible at the Georgia Aquarium, then what are you doing with your life? And then the second day was a really big day for me. Really, really big day. It was Tree Kangaroo Day. There's no other way to put it. I'm sure that other people had other experiences at the meeting. But for me, it was all Tree Kangaroo all day. So there was, again, without there being a general session, there was some interesting stuff at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, but I'd been traveling a lot and I slept in. And so I rolled in at the very reasonable morning hour of 10 o'clock. And that was because there was a 2-hour Tree Kangaroo SSP meeting. Now, if you don't know, the SSP is the Species Survival Plan, and it is breeding recommendations and moving animals and talking about that and figuring out where these animals are going to go. And the presentation, it's so interesting because as a working group, there's a mix of discussing the population, discussing where animals are going to go, looking at the trends, showing people the genetic diversity of the population, the challenges faced by having a small population of animals in a small number of facilities, and also celebrating the triumphs. And so the SSP presented on the populations and the movement of the populations. And Dr. Diana, our good friend Diana Kessler, got up and spoke about reproductive health and about how diet really has a huge impact on that, and shared some of those slides, things that we talked about on the Tree Kangaroo workshop recap episode. And actually, they also did a little pitch for Safe Tree Kangaroo, where I ended up being asked to talk about the Crunchathon and World Tree Kangaroo Day, which I was not going to do in that session. But, whatever, always happy to share the love about tree kangaroos. And so this was a solid 2-hour-long session that ran like 5 minutes over and could have gone more over, but they were aware they were going over, so they sped up. And that's what I'm talking about. At no point at annual would you just have 2 hours open to anyone at the conference to go and sit and listen to an SSP talk about, the movement of 40 animals. But that is what this meeting is, as opposed to the conference. And I obviously loved all of it. Some things can't be shared because they do, you get to be special privileges when you're in these meetings. But I'm really excited about the future of the tree kangaroo population, in the zoos here. And not just because I love them, but because these amazing people are working so hard on them. And then, as you know, Lisa Daybeck is one of my conservation heroes, as well as a former guest on the podcast. And we were chatting right after the SSP meeting, and it was lunchtime. And so we just went and got lunch together. And I just got to sit and have a casual lunch with someone who is both a friend and a hero. And that was really cool. And then the director of research at the Cleveland Zoo joined us, and we were just talking about stuff. And it was just, that's those FaceTime moments were so impactful throughout this entire, again, I almost said conference, this entire meeting. And I think it's really worth noting that, as all of this was happening, we were also catching up with people and running into people and talking. And there was just a whole lot of that kind of stuff happening. Then right after lunch, we went back to the same room, and the Tree Kangaroo SSP was done, but now it was time for Safe Tree Kangaroo of Papua New Guinea. And I am on the engagement and awareness team for that SAFE. And our leaders for that working group were unfortunately unable to attend, and so I was the one presenting for our group. So earlier in the week, I had put together some slides showing what we were doing, and the focus of this presentation was that we were celebrating the completion of the 5-year plan for Safe Tree Kangaroo. If you remember from all of the stuff I did with Red Panda, when the SAFE programs first come out, you put out a 3-year plan and it has to get approved. And then once your 3-year plan is winding down, the next plan is going to be a 5-year plan, because hopefully by then you're an established conservation organization. You've got connections. You're doing more, but you're able to slow down and look kind of bigger picture. And so we spent our whole time, it was an hour-long presentation, and just teaching people what we're doing. And for me, it was a whole lot of talking about the Crunchathon that is coming up in May, our social media push, and World Tree Kangaroo Day, which is May 21st, and how people can be involved with that, and steps we're taking to make every year better and engage with more facilities and all of that. And one of the things that I'm really excited about pushing forward with right now that I got to talk about is there aren't a lot of facilities that have tree kangaroos. There are certain ones, I think 2 or 3 in Europe, and I'm not quite sure how many in Australia right now. But as far as in the North American population, there are 18 facilities that have tree kangaroos or are kind of in the tree kangaroo world. There are a few that maybe are looking to get them or had them, but might be transitioning out of them. It's always in fluctuation. And so, I'm trying to figure out how to get other facilities to engage. And I really think that places that have other macropods, be it wallabies, especially rock wallabies, since they're kind of where tree kangaroos came from, or even ground kangaroos, would be a great place to talk about tree kangaroos because they're kind of the more endangered macropod version of it all. So talking about how I'm hoping to pitch some facilities to join us this year or maybe next, because again, you got to think big picture. But it was great. And it's such a cool experience to get up and present and do this thing with people who, again, are just people that I really respect and in some case consider heroes. And then after we finished that up, I actually was off doing interviews the rest of the day. I had 2 different interviews set up for the podcast, which you'll be hearing in the upcoming weeks. They were set up by the AZA for me, one of which deals with the larval fish program that the AZA has started, and one of which deals with accessibility within the AZA. I'm really excited to share those with you. But so I went into our little media suite and recorded those podcasts. Interestingly, all of the people who had been in the SSP meeting and then the SAFE meeting pertaining to tree kangaroos all stayed in the same room again because the monotreme and marsupial tag had a meeting in there. And the tag, in case you're not sure of that situation, the tag is the Taxonomic Advisory Group, okay? And so the way that this works is each facility that has a species, they have their experts, and then they have like a curator that's over that. And then depending on the individual facility, they might have a director of animal care or something like that over that. But at some point, you get to the point where you're outside your facility, and that's where you have the SSP that deals with breeding, but also have veterinary advisors and stuff, and you can talk to them. And then if you move past that, at the next level, there's the tag, and those are bigger pictures. So you have a small mammal tag, and these are people who are experts in small mammals. So they might not just know about red pandas like the red panda SSP people do, but they've worked with red pandas and other small mammals, and they can also be consulted and talked to about things. And they might have, knowledge of something with like a tamandua that might help with something that a red panda is dealing with when no other red panda has dealt with it. And so that's a very lame and basic overview of a tag. But so, yeah, for the tree kangaroo people, they were in one room all day doing SSP meetings and then a SAFE meeting and then a tag meeting. And then we all went out and got dinner together, and I got to join for that. We went to a really cool taco place, and Zoe rolled in. Her flight got in, and the Atlanta airport, even though she was coming in, was a disaster. But she got to join us for dinner. And so we all hung out, and that was how our evening ended. And boy, did I sleep good after that one. And since Zoe joined us for dinner, she's also going to join us for the rest of the podcast. Hi, Zoe.
Hi.
So did you have fun at Tree Kangaroo dinner?
I did have fun at Tree Kangaroo dinner. It was eventful.
Yeah. How was it eventful?
I had a quesadilla.
That's not how it was eventful.
It took a lot. It was busy. Took a long time to get things. There were drink confusions. A lot of food got dropped. There was wind. It was the wind's fault, not the person's fault.
It was.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
I was tired.
You were very tired. We were all pretty tired. But even then, we sat around and half the time we talked about
tree kangaroos.
Yeah.
It was mostly about tree kangaroos.
Yeah. It's really funny. So that was that day. And then we got to day 3. And so one of the things that I always love is that you and I go to these things and we have very different interests most of the time.
Yes.
It's pretty rare that we sit in at the same session on any of these conferences, meetings, whatever. So tell me about what you went to.
I went to Africa Safes. I think that was the first thing.
Mm-hmm. And so how did that work? Because we had a whole hour for our safe. How did that work?
You had an hour for your safe? I think it was an hour and a half for the two of them together. It was Safe African Vulture. And they were sharing time with Safe African Painted Dog. So they like went back to back, but it was pretty much just the vulture people talked and then the painted dog people talked. But it was cool. I came in a little bit late, I think. So I mostly heard from the second person who talked about the vultures. And it was the head of the Safe talking about the challenges facing vultures and what they're able to do for them in Africa. And some things about that. So that was cool. And then I really love painted dogs. I don't think I wore my painted dog thing that day. I wore my painted dog thing the next day, but I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
And they talked about that. And I have a history with Cheetah Conservation Fund. So most of my interaction with African painted dog kind of conservation science was just through Cheetah Conservation Fund because they do some crossover work, but it was cool to hear about the actual African painted dog people. And there's a area in Africa where I guess they have just discovered that there are painted dogs that they didn't really know about, and they're working on coming up with a plan to do a census and actually figure out how many painted dogs there are in that area, and hopefully some genetics too, and see who they're related to. So it was cool to hear about all that stuff.
Nice. Very cool. And then for me, I went into the PR committee. There was a 3-hour session. I only attended about an hour of it because that's just a lot of time to talk PR stuff. But even in that hour, there were so many cool things. So we already talked about at the beginning the GEO stuff and how to, again, make yourself, seen as an expert in the eyes, they don't have eyes, of AI. And it was really interesting digging into, like, this is a new thing and people are trying to figure things out. So if you partner with influencers, you will be seen as more of a credible source. If you partner with news outlets, you will be seen as a credible source. It's a really interesting dichotomy because a lot of people in the room, though not everyone, which shocked me, are pretty opposed to, AI in general, but also you have to be aware that people are using it, and you have to, for lack of a better term, foster your relationship with the AIs that are out there, and make them like you, even if you don't like them. And sometimes it gets really weird because, like, one of the big things is on social media, and the way we've always done things is you engage with things that are not true. So if you see something about your facility or about an animal or about anything that is a lie, you go and you engage with that and you say, no, this is not true. And facilities have even reached out to me, and I've reached out to you guys and said, hey, let's go and comment on this thing and make people aware of what's actually happening here. But now, if you engage with content, AIs will look at it and be like, oh, this must be real content, and they will share that information. So there's this weird thing of, if you don't go and comment, then people who do see it will not get the right information. But also, if you're commenting on it too much, then the AIs are going to be like, oh, this article is perfect, even if it's total BS. So just further proof that AI is ruining everything. I won't rant, but it was a really interesting conversation, and there's no right answer yet. How much do you engage if there's something lying about your facility? Zoo Atlanta, there was just an article that came out that they had an orangutan baby recently, and that the baby escaped. And they're looking for it all throughout Atlanta right now. And it's a lie. Very much not true. But, like, it was weirdly specific. It nailed that they have orangutans. Both the mother and the father, they got the right names of orangutans that actually live at Zoo Atlanta, though they are not living together. They are not, they're in two separate troops, and they have no opportunity to breed or even see each other. But, like, the general public doesn't know that. But the story was, like, just authentic enough that it's scary, and it was completely fake. But if you share it and tell people it's wrong, or if you go and comment on it and have a bunch of people comment on it and say that it's a lie, then the AI algorithms are more likely to look at that story and see all of the interaction and be like, oh, this must be real. And then they will share it as the truth. So weird situation. And we also had a conversation about sharing well-being and conservation stuff, and it was centered around Punch the Monkey and anthropomorphism and human emotion and how they have taken over compared to science for people, and how even normal interactions can stir strong debate. So how much do you share them? And on a personal level, it was very exciting for me because I knew a whole lot of those PR people who were very happy to see me. And then afterwards, a bunch of the people who I didn't know knew me and came and threw their cards at me. So it was a very uplifting experience. And I spoke about some of my experiences and some of my expertise kind of on the other side of the PR thing. And then, so that was my morning. And then there was lunch, and we hang out with people at lunch all the time because it's fun. And then what was your afternoon session, Zoe?
Lunch, there was the Safe Mart, which you have neglected to talk about because your safes didn't participate.
Yeah.
But there were a bunch of tables set up with the different safes and some of the tags too that had merch available either right there to buy or had like a QR code so you could go and look at their merch.
Puffin killed it, by
I was going to say, and Puffin killed it. Puffin had 2 full tables of Puffin stuff.
Guys,
and then the rest of the conference, a lot of people had Puffin stuff because there was so much Puffin stuff.
They had Puffin boxers that I'm still surprised they didn't buy.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to end up with Puffin boxers.
Yeah, they weren't like little boxers for puffins. They were
boxers for humans that had a puffin on them.
Yeah.
So Safe Mart. I also like that it was called Safe Mart.
Yes.
And in the afternoon, we took a break to recover, and then there was Safe Red Panda. That was what I did in the afternoon.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You came with me.
Yeah. So we actually were together for one of them.
Yes.
It was for Safe Red Panda.
So I can't take full credit for this, but I'm really proud of this fact. I worked really hard to promote our Safe Red Panda meeting and try and get lots of people there. I did interviews. I did all kinds of stuff. With email lists. I begged people to come. I maybe bribed some people. No, I didn't bribe anybody. But we
I'd have.
What?
I could see you bribing people.
I mean, I have in the past.
Yeah.
But we had standing room only in our room, which was really cool. So like it was considered a success with the with Safe Tree Kangaroo. See, I do it too. It's supposed to be Safe Tree Kangaroo, but we all call it Tree Kangaroo Safe because we're heathens. And there was, I think, 17 to 20 people at the meeting outside of like the Tree Kangaroo people, and that was a big success. But having standing room only rocked. And so we presented. So our leaders of the program are Shafkat Khan from the Pittsburgh Zoo and Aquarium is our vice chair. And then our chair is Nikki Boyd, curator at the San Diego Zoo. And they presented on the science side of things, the conservation work that we're doing. We talked about the Canopy Bridge project that we're building that you would have heard me talk about if you heard me on Animals, Nature, and You, Rick Schwartz's podcast. The episode dropped yesterday. Check that out. And then on top of that, we had Ong Puri Sherpa and Terrence Lee, who are the director and deputy director of Red Panda Network, our major conservation partner right now. And so they spoke about the work that they're doing in Nepal. And we talked about our partnership and all the things that we're doing, including the Red Panda Symposium that's coming up later this year and the Plant a Red Panda Forest Home program and Forest Guardians and all the cool things that Red Panda Network's doing and our Canopy connectors. And it was just really, really cool. First of all, to finally meet Ong and Terrence. I've worked with these gentlemen for years, and we actually got to shake hands and joke around with each other. On a side note, if you've ever seen Ong Puri Sherpa on any of the Red Panda Network stuff, he is a very quiet, very focused, very, very serious man. And when he presents, he's that way as well. But I got to tell you, he loves to joke around, and we laughed a lot.
During the presentation, he did a little dance.
He did. And
the music didn't work for one of the things, for one of the videos that was supposed to play. And so we, some people did a little bit of singing, and he did a little bit of dancing to make up for it.
Yeah, and both Terrence and I, by the way, are actual like drummers at a professional, semi-professional level. But what I found out is that Shafkat actually plays some different instruments, including pan flute and a little bit of tabla. And he started singing a tabla part behind it. And I was like, what is happening? Because Shafkat is also one of the more serious people when you see him presenting in the Red Panda world. So yeah, no, there was a dance, there was music, and I was incredibly happy. Weirdly, I didn't participate in any of that. I was Yeah, no, they did all the goofiness. And it was a really great time. We talked about the partnership. We talked about all the things. I'm still really, really hung up over the fact that in the like 15 minutes that I presented, it all went really well. Everybody was really responsive to everything I said. But at one point I was talking about how when you joined the SAFE program, we ask for a $1,500 donation from your facility, and we ask for that in money, but it can be in-kind donations, which if you don't know, that means donating your time, expertise, etc. And I said in situ, which is a type of conservation work. And Nikki pointed it out after the fact. I said in situ donations. And I might, when I die, hopefully many decades from now, that will probably be the last thing that goes through my mind. I cannot believe I said that. He's
been talking about it so much. It's been days.
Days. But I said in situ.
I know you did.
Yeah.
I know you did.
I wasn't nervous. Everything else was fine. It was just a mistake.
You said it very confidently.
I'd say everything very confidently. It's a problem. Yeah, what were your thoughts being in the peanut gallery there? Although you did actually get to have a moment where you stood up because she was wearing Safe Red Panda merch. And
yeah, I had to model Safe Red Panda merch.
Yeah.
I stood up and I pointed at my sweatshirt.
Yep.
I think I was the best part.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You were way more enthusiastic than I expected since I put you on stage, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, if you point me out, then I have to participate.
Yeah, you have to pretend you want that to happen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So go ahead and tell me your thoughts on the Safe Red Panda thing.
Thoughts? These are my notes.
Oh my gosh. Her notes were that she drew red pandas.
I drew some red pandas. I was, yeah.
This is the conservation impact I have, guys. You're welcome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have thoughts.
Okay.
I feel like you covered it pretty good with what you said because you were the one who was talking.
Yeah. Okay, and then that evening was the icebreaker at the Georgia Aquarium, which seemed slightly odd to me because, see, icebreakers are normally at the start of a conference, but we plopped ours right in the middle of our meeting, maybe because it's a meeting and not a workshop.
Yeah, meeting icebreakers have been in the middle.
Yeah, clearly. It broke the ice that we'd already broken for 2 days.
Yeah.
But I'm not complaining because the icebreaker was at the Georgia Aquarium, which is obviously incredible. It's not every day that you get to see a whale shark and some manta rays and all the good things. There was food. There was live band karaoke. And weirdly, almost no one that got up was a bad singer. Not a lot of people got up. It was actually mostly just the band. But I think there were only 1 or 2 people that made me groan a little bit. Most people that got up were really talented singers, and I actually really enjoyed it. Obviously, I spent most of the time away from there looking at animals, but yeah, it was good. And we got to do some behind-the-scenes stuff. We went to the top of the Ocean Voyager habitat. We went to the top of the Sharks exhibit. Did we go do anything else? Mobile classroom.
We saw the mobile classroom outside, which was pretty cool. They had their hospital and commissary open, but we didn't go over there.
We've done that so many times.
Yeah.
And then
Kapapaloogas.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Kapapaloogas was open. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was very cool. Lots of cool stuff. They had the food was out of this world.
The food was really good.
Yeah, there was Indian food and Asian food and vegetarian meatloaf with mashed potatoes that was 20 out of 10, and desserts.
Sweet potato tacos.
Oh yeah, sweet potato tacos. They were really good too. And we walked around and you socialize and you go to the aquarium and we saw a ton of people. But probably the highlight of the entire time was
Follow.
Yeah.
So Follow had a little table set up, and they had a Follow crane game machine, which was cool, and I hadn't seen before.
I've never seen that. No.
They had that set up, and we went over there pretty early. We were one of the first people there, I think, and we got to talk to them a little bit and did the crane game. And we didn't win at the crane game, but the person liked me because I had I had 6 Follow bracelets on at the time. And
I had 3.
And I was pretty enamored with the hammerhead shark Follow plush, and she gave it to me, and it made me really happy. And then I've been hugging him since then.
Yep, we named him
That
Jamal.
was like 4 days ago. We named him Jamal because of Dungeon Crawler Carl, and he's the best.
Yeah, he's very good. It was very sweet of them. So one of the two people there at the follow booth is named Tracy, and I've met her before, and she's actually the person who connected me with everything follow as I was getting into the red panda bracelets coming out, and as I became a follow ambassador and all of that. And it was good to catch up with Tracy, and I made my pitch for a collaboration with Safe Tree Kangaroo. Will it happen? I don't know, but I will tell you, I've been pitching follow on this in a couple different ways through email and haven't really heard anything, but actually getting FaceTime in like 5 minutes. We had a serious discussion. I knew who I need to talk to, and like the ball is rolling. I don't know how far that ball will roll. Might be an upward hill, and we might not get there, but I feel like
hill.
Yeah. But I feel like it she's hugging Jamal. I feel like
I mean, Jamal wanted to be on. This is Jamal.
Yeah,
he's here.
He's here. He's a follow shark. He's tapping a microphone. But I feel like I got more accomplished in that 5-minute conversation than I did in all of the emails and reaching out and doing research, which is, I think the biggest takeaway from this for me is that FaceTime really matters. And throughout this thing, people have talked to me about job opportunities, and people have talked to me about ways to collaborate between our saves and stuff. And it's just amazing how that FaceTime really matters. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about the icebreaker?
No.
Good chat. All right. And then the next day, I went to mobilizing zoo teams for field conservation impact through safe program designs and action planning. And this was actually hosted by Safe Red Panda, though it was just our leaders. I was not involved.
You're one of the leaders. You're just not one of those two leaders.
Right. I'm not a program leader.
Yes.
I am an executive board member. Yes. Which is a pretty cool
And you're
title.
a working group leader.
Yes, I'm a working group co-leader. Yes. And so
so many words.
This is why the zoo industry has so many acronyms.
Yeah, because it's too many words otherwise.
Yeah. But when you want to have a long podcast, it's actually great to have a lot of words.
Yeah.
That works. So that was really cool. The idea of the whole session there was to talk about how to actually get people to engage like keepers and stuff with safe programs, and how to bring their expertise in, because obviously they are people who are passionate about these animals. And it started off, it was actually so sweet, y'all. It started off with Shafkat and Nikki presenting about some people who they've brought into the safe who come from a slightly like alternative thing. They're not just keepers. They're not just people, curators, whatever. And they presented 4 of them. And I was one of them. I was a case study. And they both spoke so lovingly about me. And it was so nice. And I was very, very touched. And then it turned into a roundtable discussion where a bunch of different safe people from different programs, we all sat around together and shared what has worked for us. And I was very active in it, as was Katie Levin, who is the head of the overall SAFE program with the AZA, was there, and she was very active. And people from Monarch Butterfly and Bison and Tree Kangaroo and all these different people were speaking and riffing and learning from each other. And it was really cool, and it really meant a lot to me to be able to see that all pulled together. And I'm so proud of my colleagues at Safe Red Panda for putting that together. It was really exciting. One thing that I thought was really funny is that I was actually torn about whether to go to that, or there was another meeting about ethical AI use, or the ethics of AI use, I should say. And there was actually a presentation done in that meeting by a Rossifari listener who was inspired to do the presentation by the episode of Rossifari that I did with Chelsea, where we talked about the impact of these fake animal AI videos. And so there were actually 2 sessions happening simultaneously referencing Rossifari. And I can't even tell you how much that meant to me, and how much it was proof to me that, Rossifari keeps actually impacting this industry. And that was really cool. So what did you go to?
I went to... I don't remember what it was actually called, and I didn't...
That's okay. Just describe it.
It was about leashes.
Yeah, it was Ambassador
Animal Leash Talk Fun.
Yep,
I think that's what it was called.
Yep.
I'm going to find it because I have it, and then I will be able to say
See, Zoe has gotten
The
sleepier
words.
because she is still cuddling Jamal.
I should probably stop. It was called Ambassador Animals and Leash Use. It wasn't actually a lot of words. That was 5 words. So it was about using leashes and other equipment a little bit with ambassador collection animals, and the impacts of that, and kind of the how places have been using leashes and moving away from using leashes at different facilities. So I thought it was really cool. It was kind of a bunch of people talked in a row from different facilities about their experiences. The first person who talked was from the San Diego Zoo, talking about animals specifically in the Elephant Odyssey Corral area, which was really cool because I feel like every time we've been to the zoo, I haven't really seen any of this with them, of those animals acting as ambassadors. We usually just kind of walk by and get to see them. So it's the camels and the donkeys. So they're domestics, but they're being managed in a zoo setting. It sounds like they used to have a Mustang and maybe some other animals, but right now it's camels and donkeys. And so she talked about she'd been there a long time, and it sounds like she kind of started the program of getting them halter trained and lead rope trained so that they can walk those animals around the zoo and walk them outside of their exhibits to go and meet people. And also for the camels specifically, she said the only scale they have that's big enough to weigh those camels is in the elephant area. So being able to walk them over there to get accurate weights was a really big value for them, which meant a lot to me as a veterinarian, because getting accurate weights is super important for a bunch of different things, for tracking and for dosing medications and all of that stuff. So I thought that was interesting. And it was an interesting perspective because those are domestic species. So it's kind of a different connotation, I think, when people see a camel or a donkey on a halter with a lead rope. It's kind of expected. And so they don't have to deal with the negative implications of that as much as some of the other people who talk later about their collection, which is more exotic species. So that was cool. And then someone from Zoo Tampa talked next and was talking about their use of leashes and harnesses, which is basically that they don't anymore use leashes and harnesses for their animals. They used to, and they've moved away from it and now manage them all without any kind of equipment. So they are just using training, just using positive reinforcement training for the most part, to make their animals comfortable in the environments where they bring them. And they make use of other things, like they'll bring them to areas that have barriers so that they can safely be around people, or they'll just have them under really good kind of behavioral control so they're comfortable walking at heel with their handler and stuff like that, without using any kind of leash or harness type equipment. That obviously controls the types of species they can work with in that way too, though. Like they don't have any, clouded leopards or anything like that that are walking around with no harness or no leash because of, laws. But they are able to work with the species they have in that way. So she talked about that and some of the challenges of going to that. Then somebody from Salisbury Zoo talked, which was cool. I didn't know about Salisbury Zoo, but apparently it's a little zoo and they have a pretty good education and ambassador animal team there.
They do. They're actually on the pathways to membership. They want to do a Rossifari episode.
Oh, cool.
We've tried to connect multiple times.
Well,
it's
you
a great
should connect to
place.
Kelly because she seemed really cool, and I think she'd love to talk to you about her ambassador animals.
Nice.
But that was a cool perspective because she talked a lot about. So it's a free zoo; it's free to the public to go there. So they have a lot of challenges with making money to
that makes it
afford
harder
to exist because they don't charge admission. And so there's a lot more pressure on their program directly, and just being a small zoo too, there's a lot more pressure on their program to be profitable with their ambassador animals because they make money doing like off-site visits and stuff like that. So they don't have quite the flexibility that some other facilities have to really be choosy about what animals go where as much. So they talked about using leashes and harnesses as an option for getting these animals out into the public. But then she also talked about they did like a tiny little micro study with their ferrets at their facility of comparing people's reactions to ferrets being shown in hand. So someone, ambassador keeper, just holding a ferret and bringing it out to the public versus having a ferret on a harness and leash. And the kind of word associations people had with that and the takeaways they had from the presentation with that. And that was interesting. The big takeaways were people seem to prefer the in-hand to the being on a leash and harness from the like little micro study that she did, but there were a lot of kind of confounding factors that may have played into that, and I have a lot of thoughts about that. But it was interesting to hear that little kind of micro study result, and it sounds like something that she wanted to do more of during their busier season and get more of a kind of representative sample there. Which goes into the next presentation, which was David Powell from St. Louis talking about a paper that they're working on comparing public perceptions of specifically talking about cheetahs and kind of the cheetahs being used in programs on leashes and harnesses or collars and how that affects what people think about them. And that was an interesting conversation because he did a really good job, I think, of presenting it as this is exactly what our data were and what that showed, but that doesn't necessarily translate directly into what we should do or doesn't take into account the values of those programs. So it was an interesting conversation about kind of what the purpose of these programs is and how we can shape them to do a better job of achieving those goals. And then the last person who talked was Nikki, who dipped out of your talk to come into the end of my talk because while you were being talked about in two different ones, Nikki had to talk in two different ones.
Yes, she's a rock star.
So she came to talk about leash use at the San Diego Zoo with their ambassador collections a little bit more, and talked about how they've been trying to shape their facilities and their programs away from having to use leashes. So with their new ambassador spaces in Explorers Base Camp and other places that they've built kind of these circuits so ambassador animals can walk around on their own without having to be restrained, and that they really only use leashes now for species where it's a requirement with the USDA because of like barrier laws. So for their cheetahs and for their clouded leopards, they have to, but for other things, they can have them just out. And that was cool. She also talked a little bit about related that like they've moved away from, they used to for events, bring the animals to event spaces a little bit more. And now they're trying to bring people from the event to the ambassador animal areas. So the animals are in their normal environment because they're able to tell their stories a little bit better that way. And the animals are more comfortable that way. And the keeper presenter people are a little more comfortable that way. And I guess with the construction of the new elephant, Valley,
Yeah.
Elephant Valley at the safari park, they've taken that into account too and built spaces that are specifically going to be useful for the ambassador teams. Yeah.
Okay, and if you're wondering how she knew all of that, it's because she took copious notes. Did you just draw red pandas?
I
pages of notes.
Four full pages in my notebook of notes from that one.
Yeah, and so that's basically what our experience was there. We had a couple general sessions, which I talked a little bit about at the beginning. We met with a ton of people, and then we ended at kind of our time with Zoo Day. So we went to we started off at Zoo Atlanta, and we did the whole zoo, but then the event part of it was kind of around their newer elephant area. And there was food and dancing, except no one danced, and lots of desserts. And again, it was just a great time to socialize. And, I don't really have to tell you about Zoo Day. We went to the zoo. We saw their red panda.
Binturongs.
We saw 3 binturongs, one of which...
Bramble!
Both Zoe and I have known since it was a little cub, a little bintlet up
Just
at
a little guy.
Roger Williams Park Zoo. And then the other two were actually Bramble's sons, and they are cuddlebugs. And they were just cuddling each other like the whole time.
Different ways.
We just kept going back. Actually, we spent significantly more time with the binturongs than any other animal. But there were presentations and behind-the-scenes things, and we got to see a bird presentation. And it was just all fantastic. It was awesome. It was
the
really well
birds
done.
were really cool. They flew their ground hornbill, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Like, flew up to the places and did the things.
Yeah. And then our buddy
Black Vulture was really excited to be there.
Yes. And then that's it for Zoo Day. And then our buddy Chad Pfeiffer, who is the CEO at Aquarium of Niagara, did a presentation. There's a very high award, the highest award the AZA gives out, that was awarded posthumously to the CEO of the Georgia Aquarium, Brian, who we've met a little bit and who passed away and who everybody loved, might have been the most beloved person in the AZA. And it was really cool that Chad got to do that. And I snuck out a third of the way through it to record interviews because I'm a bad person.
Yep.
And then headed to Georgia Aquarium to do an interview for all of you lovely listeners. And then we headed off to Knoxville because we're about to go to Zoo Knoxville once we're done recording this.
We headed off to Chattanooga.
But we stopped on the way. I wasn't done.
You skipped it.
I didn't, because as we were leaving, as I put Knoxville into the thing, I was excited to see that Chattanooga was there. And y'all might remember Jake, who is their PR person, who was on doing an episode when they had Pilatus, a red panda baby. And Jake and I actually caught up at the meeting as well. And he invited us out, and we spent probably 2.5 hours just wandering the zoo. It was the two of us and Jake. And then for a while, we were joined by
Tony.
Their vet, Tony. Yeah, he's a friend of ours. Great job. You're really good at this.
Yeah, Dr. Tony Ashley, who's really cool at Chattanooga. And I got to talk to him about nerdy vet stuff.
Yep. While I talked nerdy PR stuff with Jake, and we walked around and saw all the animals, including their ambassadors and all that stuff. So yeah, it was a really great time. And as those of you who listen know, we are nowhere near done. We are now on our way to the joint ABMA IAATE conference. And we're also close to getting kicked out of our hotel because we recorded this instead of getting ready in the morning. So now we have to go do that. Hope y'all enjoyed listening. And don't forget, we'll be back here on Tuesday with another interview episode. Before I go, Jamal is tapping the microphone again. I don't know if you guys can hear that because it's a plush, but Jamal says goodbye. Please stop. And before we get going, though, I do want to take a moment to say thank you to you all for listening, and to my patrons, and especially to my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Shank, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, Kevin Williams, and Cormac McMuffin. Meow. Love you all so much. Thank you for the support. And remember, until next time, friends, the word credits backwards is Diderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari, or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.